We are 3, I think, videos into this YouTube/Booktube channel, and I have yet to introduce myself properly, which feels a little bit impolite. So today we are gonna do the Booktube Newbie Tag, but I am gonna do it in a slightly different configuration than I've seen other people doing. Not to come into Booktube and immediately start critiquing things, but the order of these questions is silly and some of them are repetitive. So I've rewritten them a bit and just switched them around. Just some light editing. But before we jump into the questions, because none of the questions are, who the fuck are you? My name is Ceinwen Langley. I've been going by Feed the Writer as my social media handle since the birth of Twitter in 2008. The handle started as a bit of a joke. I was studying screenwriting as an undergrad at the time and I was broke as shit. So I thought that that was a very funny way to tell people that A, I was a writer, B, I was up for work, and C, I really needed to be paid and fed. At the time, nobody thought that Twitter or social media was gonna be such a thing, but it was, and I actually started getting work off of Twitter eventually and just made a load of connections in various writing industries, which was really great. So I kept Feed the Writer because the writer got fed, but also because I'm a strong believer in workers' rights and being paid fairly and promptly for work that you have done. I really hate the way that a lot of people in my industry really try to exploit young writers and young artists, because this is supposed to be a dream job. You should be someone who would do it for free. And I'm really not about that, so I do hope that my handle is in some way just putting up a little flag saying, pay people what they're worth. But another more practical reason is that when I meet people in real life, the few times that ever happens, it is easier to direct people to Feed the Writer than to explain how to spell Ceinwen. So that's me. I'm an author. I've written 2 novels and a short story collection. I'm a screenwriter. I work mostly on a TV show called Neighbours, which I've written 60-something episodes of, and I have worked in game dev primarily on visual novels put out by a company called Pixelberry. But what is most relevant about me to you guys is that I love talking about books on the internet. So let's get into the actual questions. Question 1, when did I start reading and what book or series got me into it? I was the very stereotype of the precocious reader as a kid. I don't remember a time in my life when I wasn't able to read on my own. My parents were avid readers, most of my brothers were avid readers, our house was always full of books. We lived in one of the most remote parts of Australia in the early 90s, and somehow my mum still managed to get new books for me all the time. I think she just got them through mail order. My parents read to me every night. It was a really nice way to grow up. My earliest favorites were the Dr. Seuss books and some old fairy tale books, but my first favorite book, full-length novel chapter book, was The Hobbit. My parents and my brothers used to read me that until I could read it myself. We had a graphic novel version, which I started with and then advanced to the full book. I also had an audiobook cassette that was narrated by this fabulously voiced Welsh guy. So the pronunciation of everything was just magnificent. I listened to that until the cassette fell apart. I still read it often, it's still a favorite, and I now have many beautiful editions of it. And then I continued to read avidly all through primary school and high school. I would read anything from the library. I would read everything I owned a million times. My favorites from that period, probably Isabel Carmody, who's a big Australian YA fantasy author, Christopher Pike, R.L. Stine. I read a bunch of adult fantasy once I got to about 11. My mum had every book Raymond E. Feist ever wrote, which I didn't love, but they were there, so I read them all multiple times. YA as a dedicated demographic really became a thing after I finished high school and started getting into uni and post-uni. So I got really into that in my early 20s. That was your like Hunger Games, Divergent, Lunar Chronicles, phase of publishing. Patrick Ness's Chaos Walking trilogy I really liked, but there was a lot of shit in there too. I could kind of identify at the time that my tastes were changing, where I was probably past the age where exclusively reading about teenagers was enough for me. I was an adult, but I didn't know what my tastes as an adult were, because the adult books I had been reading as a kid were all very old white man fantasy. And other than a brief obsession with Game of Thrones, along with the rest of the world, they weren't doing it for me either. So I was lost in the bookshop, I was lost elsewhere. I would borrow books off of people and just be a little bit underwhelmed. And I found that really frustrating because I loved reading. I wanted to be a reader. And then several things happened in a 6-month period. I moved to Melbourne for work, and my partner, with whom I was going long distance, brought me a book called Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey, because he really liked the TV show and I hadn't really gotten into the first episode or so. So he bought me the book to see if I would enjoy it in that way, which I did. I inhaled it, I loved it. I got the rest of the series on audiobook and just consumed. And a friend and his husband at work, both big genre readers, suggested reading Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer and The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. And I loved them all so much. I ordered the rest of the Southern Reach trilogy and inhaled those. That 6-month period was the most I had read in years, and that really just set me off in a direction of adult genre books that I really loved. I started seeking out more books by Tor and Orbit, and I started following more sort of bookish accounts on Instagram that focused on genre, which is how I discovered Silvia Moreno Garcia with Mexican Gothic. And once the pandemic hit, I was directed towards The Year of Wonders by Geraldine Brooks. Actually, no, I was warned away from The Year of Wonders by Geraldine Brooks because everyone was like, oh my god, no, stay away from plague content, don't read this book. And I was like, ooh, plague content? Because I like to lean into the horrors. And during said pandemic, I got put onto TikTok and BookTok, where I was flooded after, the default settings wore off. I was flooded with incredible genre recommendations. And now my online social media circle is just absolutely full of people who read constantly and read really interesting stuff. I am so rich in book recommendations that I never don't have anything to read. I have found my way back to the way I used to read as a teenager and as a kid, and I absolutely love it. Question 2. Why do I love reading? At a craft level, I love seeing people play and experiment. I love seeing which words people choose to articulate certain emotions or to paint certain imagery. I am an absolute fiend for great dialogue and interesting uses of conversation. I think art, which includes writing, is one of the best ways we have to look through other people's eyes, like in a very literal sense. There are so many different types of just brains in the world. There are so many different forms of human experience. The world looks different to every single person. And reading in particular, I think, allows us to really sit in the front seat and experience someone else's existence. I think that's just mind-blowing. So yeah, I love reading. I think storytelling is one of the coolest fucking things that humankind has ever done. Question 3. What kind of books do I like to read? I really love books that make me think about something that I haven't thought about before, or that make me think about something in a new way. Like, I do read for fun and entertainment, but unfortunately, I guess I do consider thinking to be a fun thing to do. I'm still primarily drawn to genre, especially fantasy, sci-fi, historical, and horror. Bonus points if those genres overlap in any way, like science fantasy or historical horror, which are two favorites. But my tastes have developed again in the past 5 years that I've been in online book spaces. Lately I've been getting into nonfiction more and contemporary lit fic. It's probably actually easier to just say what I don't read. I'm very rarely drawn to capital R romance, which is just romance as the main focus of any book. I think it's definitely my least read fiction genre alongside thrillers and mysteries. That said, I'll still read a couple of each a year. They're just not something I reach for. Question number 4. Where do I read? I read over there. There's a couch. I could show it to you, but it is currently covered in crap. Number 5. What does my book collection look like? It looks like that. There are more shelves that way. There's another shelf there. There's a shelf in the hallway, and one in my bedroom. They are divided into genre, so that's YA fantasy, that's adult fantasy, that is adult science fiction with some YA science fiction down the bottom. There we have historical fiction going down into horror, classics on the end, non-fiction and comics and graphic novels in the hallway, and arcs in my bedroom, where I do forget to read them. I briefly got onto a bunch of different ARC lists for Australian publishers and then slowly got kicked off each one of them as I neglected to actually film any reviews / filmed very negative reviews for a couple. So I don't get ARCs anymore. I do, however, have a copy of the cancelled Kate Corain sci-fi romance. It is the only book Del Rey has ever sent me. I think because for a while I was Greek mythology based. Oh yeah, this shelf is Greek classics, Greek mythology retellings, and contemporary lit fic. You can't see it, but it's all there. It's quite a pretty shelf. But yeah, I was briefly on TikTok someone people went to for Greek mythology retellings, which got me a copy of the Kate Corain book that no one will ever read. Except me. I read it before everything happened. I did not like it. Why did I start this channel? I started talking about books online, first via Instagram and then TikTok, because none of my friends in real life ever wanted to talk to me about books. That's it. My partner will listen to me to a point, but he's not a big reader, so there's only so long you can monologue at a person you can tell is kind of being nice to you. The camera does not give me that. The reason I started a Booktube channel was because over the past year, I mean, aside from all of this TikTok ban stuff that's been happening, I've gotten really sick of TikTok's short form function. The platform in general is terrible for my ADHD, and I really came to dislike the way that it encouraged posting without thinking and posting in the moment. And I'm a yapper. Like, no matter how much they said they were pushing long form videos, anytime I filmed a properly long video, it would just not get pushed out. People don't want to watch long form videos on TikTok, the swiping app. And I didn't want to put my thoughts on anything in under 30 seconds. So I was planning to move here anyway. I loved so much about TikTok. I especially appreciated feeling like I was part of a community of people who prioritized and loved reading. And currently it feels like that is the case. A lot of people that I love from TikTok have made the jump over here to make longer, slower paced videos, which is really nice. Question 7, what am I most excited for about this new channel? For me, I'm most excited about the process of making videos for YouTube. I enjoy the much slower pace. I enjoy the fact that I don't feel remotely pressured to put out more videos than I feel like. I know that there is an algorithm at work here, but I don't really care about it. I know I have a much lower subscriber count here than I did on TikTok. I know TikTok made it so easy to grow, but I'm really excited for the fact that the people who do choose to subscribe to me will actually see my videos. Whether they choose to watch them is up to them, but I enjoy the fact that they are gonna just be able to see what I'm putting out. I don't know if we'll ever be free of an algorithm again, which is a dark thought, but for now at least, it feels like YouTube allows you to operate outside of it a little. Like, it's not entirely dependent on that. Content-wise, I am excited to explore different options and opportunities. Right now, I'm just making these monthly wrap-up vlogs because that's a really comfy way for me to ease into this new format. But as I get more comfortable here, I would like to start adding in, you know, extra stuff. TBD on what that actually would be. Feel free to drop some requests. Question 8, what are some fun and unique things I can bring to Booktube? I don't know. A fun fact about me is that I have never, ever, ever been good at job interviews. I actually got my internship at Neighbours many years ago. This was in end of 2009. I got that in spite of my interview. The script producer at the time literally told me that my interview wasn't great, but that my work that I submitted was so strong that they let me in. And that feels like the story of my life. Good at writing, bad at promoting myself. But I guess I bring the perspective of someone who has written in various industries. I quite recently got a master's degree in writing genre fiction. I don't actually like talking about writing that much on its own. Like, this is never gonna be a writing advice channel. I genuinely hate one-size-fits-all writing advice, but I do like talking about several craft things when relevant. So that is something I occasionally can't help mixing in. I have a really cute dog who has not consented at this time to be included in this video, but you know, he might pop up in the future. I have a fun accent. It is an Australian accent, technically, but I have been told by many other Australians that it's a bit of a weird one. And whenever I'm in Melbourne, I am asked what part of America I'm from, which I am convinced is a joke being played on me by all of Melbourne. I think what I actually have is a neurodivergent Australian accent that is made a little bit weirder by the fact that I've lived in 3 separate places in Australia. Contrary to international opinion, the different states do have different accents. I've also lived in New Zealand. I had a Welsh dad. I watch a lot of TV. But yeah, I think this is a fun accent for you to have in your life. Question 9, what questions would I ask my favorite booktubers? All of my favorite booktubers currently are my friends, so I don't know what I would ask them in this public forum other than, I guess, what brand of microphones are you all using, and are any of them cheap but good? And finally, question 10, what challenges do I think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? For me, I think the biggest one is self-confidence. Both to just be on camera and be natural, and also just self-confidence in my thoughts and opinions. Absolutely none of this comes easy to me. I can't just put on a camera and talk to it with any hope of staying on topic. I am very conscious of the fact that I forget what the topic of the sentence I started was by the time I near the end of it. Not reach the end of it, because when you have ADHD, you speak in paragraphs, but you don't know what the topic of that paragraph is. And I think I used to get away with that more when I was younger. I mean, I am well known amongst people in real life for my rambling, also ranting. But either I work better off camera where I'm not second guessing everything, or I've just gotten less able to keep my place with age, which is why you are going to see a million cuts in all of my videos. I am desperately trying to stay on topic when I film these videos, and sometimes that just means I have to film one short sentence at a time. And yeah, I do spend a lot of my time frustrated that I am not as thoughtful and intelligent as I would like to be, that anything I put out into the world is not of enough value that I have nothing new or interesting or important to say. But I try to remember that I am not trying to be the world's most intelligent and thoughtful person. I am always trying to improve myself, but I do not need to reach perfection. And what I'm trying to do here is not to be the smartest book talker on BookToker, fuck. I think reading and writing is such a powerful art form, and I just want more people to enjoy and appreciate it with me. I think there are books for every kind of reader, and I think every kind of reader can push themselves further than they think they're able to. I think everyone can stomach weirder books, and I think everyone is intelligent enough to challenge themselves to read more difficult books. I think everyone benefits from reading outside of their experience. I think reading does not make you a better or more intelligent person by default, but I do think it has the capability to push you into interesting directions. I think reading can help you grow as a person if you choose to pursue that. But yeah, I think as long as I remember that I am here to celebrate a love of reading, to promote writing and reading as an art form worthy of respect for the craft, and to share that love and respect, then it'll all be fine. That is it. That is all of the questions. We are officially done with the newbie booktube tag. I hope that this has been fun for you. Yeah. I don't know how else to end this, so we're just gonna turn off the camera. Thank you, bye. I have just realized that my chair has probably been squeaking this entire video, so just pretend I'm on a boat.